Hello! Welcome back to Rip Club Sewing. Rip Club, reap what you sow. Ned the Beatnik Alien says, fix your pants! Okay, so I tried doing another tutorial and looked at the video, and I think maybe people might be able to learn something from the Take Up the Rise. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do a jeans hem. You will want to use the pounding the nubs technique, probably with your center crotch seam when you're taking up your rise too. So hopefully you won't break needles on that. Now, for the hem. This particular jeans hem, I've put another kind of fabric in the sides to make them bigger on the sides and the waist, and then we're adjusting the rise on them to make a custom fit of an old pair of jeans, to make a custom, really cool pair of jeans. So once again, I'm bringing out the Rip Club tailor trick of using a blade to cut seams out. We all, I'm sure, have seen these little gadgets. They're called the seam rippers, with a little hook and a little cutting tool. They're very nice when you're doing bridal and fineries, but for heavier fabrics and once you've done as much sewing as I have, you have to do the quick way. You can't sit there picking out little stitches all day. So here's the hem. Now I'm going to take the hem up, but as you can see, I'm taking the hem up just an inch. So now I can do a cheater's way, and I can just cut off the old hem and zigzag or serge with the overlock machine the edges, and just fold it up and top stitch it, and that's fine. But that's not a true original jeans hem, is it now? Where it's folded up and it gets all those nice little worn nubbies. So I want to do a real jeans hem on this. So first I'm going to take my blade, a utility knife, an old Boy Scout knife, an X-Acto knife, a one-sided razor blade, or just an old favorite smaller knife that you can run the blade in the seam. Now I'm going to try to come a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. It's easier if you position it on something so you can cut away from yourself. But I'm going to try real hard to get this shot in here so you can see what I'm doing. Now I don't want that blade too long or it's going to cut right through there. I sure hope you can see this. Okay. Now isn't that easy? Ta-da! Look at that. The sound is fun too. That nice ripping sound for Rip Club. Rip it. See how that is? Isn't that awesome? I teach people this in my sewing lounge, and I provide all the tools and the cutting table, machines, sergers, pressing equipment, cutting equipment, and tons of threads here. So if you're in Loveland or in and around the NoCo, Northern Colorado area, come and see me, and I'll show you some of the cool stuff we do, and you can bring some of your own projects. We'll be happy to walk you through, along with the club entrance fees, to walk you through it. Now see, I've taken it all out. Isn't that nice? Now I can cut it down to size and have my new hem, which is going to be here. Okay. Now when you do a jeans hem, let me grab a little lighter piece of fabric so I can show you easier. When you do a jeans hem, you're going to press up with your iron. Now remember, 1/3 of sewing is cutting, and 1/3 of sewing is pressing. That's with an iron. or with your fingers if it's leather, or with weights. You can't get away from that if you want to have a good project. Now, if you're a skilled seamstress or seamster, you know how to pinch and sew. So you don't necessarily always have to do that because you've worked in a factory. But for alterations and couture and, you know, custom fitting and tailoring and dressmaking, yeah, it's just easier to press it. And there's a lot of shortcuts you can do with just dampering down your iron instead of ironing like this. Just damper it down, give it a little steam, finger press it down, clap it down with some wood. Works great. And I'm going to show you one of the tricks of doing a jeans hem. Now, you're going to press it up, and then you'll take it down. And that press line, that's your hem. You don't cut your jeans where you want them hemmed. You cut them an inch longer than that. So you press it up, and then you go back and you cut it off an inch from your press line. Then you'll fold it like this and like that. And then you can sew it right there, and you'll have a lovely jeans hem. Now, the trick that I wanted to show you is when you have these intersections where your side seams are, you get a lot of layers because you've got 2 layers of the fabric and then 2 from the seam allowance. So that's 4 layers. So when you fold it over once, over twice, that's a lot of layers. And you get this bump here. Now, a lot of people don't think they can do a jeans hem on their home machine because they break the needle when they're going over that hump. There's something you can get called a hump jumper, which will help you through. I've used them, but I've always used cardboard in front and behind of the nub. I call this the nub. Make sure you have the right size needle. You want a 14 at least, even on thin stuff like cords, and a 16 is better. You can put top stitching thread in the bobbin only, and adjust that accordingly with your tensions, and then sew it from this side. If you do that, most machines will take top stitching thread at least in the bobbin only, even if they don't like it on the top. If you are putting top stitching thread on the top and the bottom, or just the top, if you're sewing from this side, which is a little harder to catch that, make sure you use a top stitching needle. It has a bigger hole in the needle, and that'll allow you to use that thread in your machine. You are going to have to adjust your tension, and refer to your sewing machine manual for tension adjustments on the threads. You know, it's a common sense thing. Construction and those, you know, electrician and plumbers and stuff and mechanics, they kind of have this little saying, righty tighty, lefty loosey. So if you turn the screw to the right, it gets tighter. If you turn the screw to the left, it gets looser. If you have a thicker thread in there, there's going to be more drag. You're going to need the tension to be looser. Okay? But and that's in the bobbin. But in the top of a sewing machine, usually you need to tighten up the thread if it's a thicker thread in the top. So you tighten it for that thick thread in your needle tension, in the top tension that's easily accessible in the front of the machine. And you'll loosen your bobbin tension, which is that little screw in your bobbin case. When I show people this, they are amazed that they didn't realize. Here's a bobbin case. This is a standard bobbin case. There's different types, but they all have a couple of screws on them. This one only has the one. Some of them have one that also holds this band onto the actual bobbin case. But see that little screw there? You can literally use a seam ripper if you can't find your little miniature screwdriver that came with your sewing machine. You can take this guy and look at that. You can turn them. Neat, neat. See that? When you do adjust your bobbin tension, do it a hair. I mean, literally like the thickness of this. Only a hair at a time, or it can be frustrating to get it back to the right tension. You're just turning it a hair at a time. Just a hair. Test it. The way you test your tension in your standard bobbin case is you hold the thread, and it should hold it up. But when you do this, the thread should drop down a little bit, like a yo-yo. Whoop. If it goes too fast all the way, it's too loose. If it doesn't drop at all, then it's too tight. So that's another thing that I teach in the Get to Know Your Machine class, when I show you all about setting the tensions and how to use a sewing machine. Definitely want a nice sharp needle, and you're going to want to pin up your hem and press it good. Press it hard so it flattens out as much as possible. When you're done pressing it, then you want to pound the nubs. You can go to your bench in the garage, you can go to the concrete sidewalk, take a hammer, which I should have grabbed. But I have it on my bench. I have a specific bench for pounding nubs. Sorry about that. Hammer. Nub. You might need to sacrifice a couple of pins. I usually will pin that hem up on either side of the nub, but sometimes I still bang them with the hammer. Press, 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 press it, press, 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 right? Okay. And then that little nubby guy. And this is really fun. When I taught my mother this, she went to town. How fun is that? Get all your frustrations out. As you can see though, sometimes you'll have the casualty of a pin. Throw it away. They're cheap. That one held up pretty good. No, that one bent too. Okay, now look at how flat that is and smooth. Okay, you should be able to force that through your machine, no problem. If you have a slant needle, it's going to be easier. If you have a slant needle machine, if you have a big old beast, old Singer or industrial machine, you don't have to worry about it and not having enough power to pull it through. But when you have a little brother like this, yes, you can do it on that. You absolutely can. Press it, pound the nubs, put the right size needle, a nice sharp one. Sharp is very important. Put a new needle in there. And put your top stitching thread in your bobbin, adjust your bobbin. Start on the inside leg when you're sewing it, like they do in the factory, and just go all the way around. And when you get back to that point, just sew right through at least a ½ inch through your beginning stitches, so you don't need to back stitch. Very problematic on a home machine, because once again you're going over that nub and you might break a needle and it might scratch up your throat plate or put a nick in it, and then the threads will break and you won't know what's wrong. Been there, done that. Don't need to do that. Run it right over that, and you will have a hem just like they do in the factory. It'll look gorgeous. You can even go back and make this white edge by painting a little bleach or rubbing it with a grater. Also a really neat thing you can do while you're on the concrete is you can take the ends of the jeans and stick it on the concrete or on a concrete block, or just on the sidewalk somewhere. And if you pound it and pull at the same time, it'll scratch, make these neat little scratchy marks. Not a big deal. If you're doing a French hem on the jeans where they do a buckle, where they're pinching it out. It's also called a European hem. It's also called retaining the original hem, because that's what it is. And you sew, you do a pinch on the inside, and you're sewing it up here. You're still going to need to pound those nubs to get it through your regular machine, and you're going to need to use a zipper foot to get in there. Okay, so that's another way. And then you don't have to worry about the top stitching thread, or if you like the icky bottom. Okay, so I hope this was a informative little lecture for you. And don't forget, you reap what you sow. Rip Club Sewing, this is Bonnie signing off, and we welcome your comments and your suggestions. And please do check us out at ripclubsewing.com, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.